Hello and welcome back to Savage Garden, an Interview the Vampire podcast sampling AMC's Immortal universe, one morsel at a time. I'm Kat, and as ever, I'm joined by my companion Naomi as we finally get back to season two after all of our little side quests. And we dive into the second episode, Do You Know What It Means to Be Loved by Death? And just because we've done it every other episode, this at time of first looking at IMDb, this was ranked eighth with a score of 8.3, which is still a solid score and kind of places it around the middle of the pack. We have got lots to get into. We are finally in Paris. We meet the Théâtre de Vampire. And I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with Daniel that macarons are bullshit. But we will we will get to that. So yeah, Naomi, thoughts and feelings of this second episode, because the first episode we were a little bit lukewarm on, I think.
So the first episode is probably the weakest episode for me. And I think it suffers because it follows such a strong series one finale.
Yeah.
And then you come back. So I think both of us binge watched this. Whereas I suspect because when it comes to series three, we're going to be watching week by week. And I suspect if we had watched this um week by week after the first episode came back, we'd have been like, really? And the thing is, I've always said that that first episode has two of my favorite scenes in the entire show in it, which is Louis sobbing over Claudia, over the realization that Claudia can dream, which should, in a just world, have won Jacob Anderson an Emmy, but we don't live in that world. And also the me and you and me sequence, which has the truly, truly beautiful music from Daniel Hart over it. But yeah, it's a decent opening, but it is filler,
Yes.
and I think that's the problem with it. It's filler. This episode, I have literally just finished watching it before I'm rewatching it before we did this particular recording, and I had forgotten what a strong episode this is. So many of the iconic scenes and iconic moments are in this episode. It is directed by Levan Akin, who is, I think, my favorite director in the series. He directed the series two finale. He is very, very good. And I mean, this entire episode is just shot in the most beautiful lighting. It's all very romantic, very Parisian, very candlelit and amber tones and all the rest of it. And it's written by Shane Munson and Jonathan Steniceros. Uh, Jonathan's written a number of other episodes. I think he's one of my favorite writers of the series. But yeah, this is such a good episode. And it is, as you said, it is when Claudia and Louis, but we're finally in Paris. We're finally meeting the Théâtre de Vampire. And the whole episode kind of makes your heart ache all the way through. Because again, if we'd watched this without having binge watched, you'd have been like, oh, Armand is lovely. It's Angel. And you would not have known all the things that are going to happen. And it just makes me so incredibly sad. So as we start, we start off in the present in Dubai. Armand has now fully joined the interview. And Armand and Louis are radiating what I can only describe as smug married. They are utterly nauseating in all the present day scenes. They are grotesque. I mean, I have been to so many dinner parties where you have a couple like this. It's like Tarquin and Oliver, who are, delighted at their beautiful upper middle class lives and want to talk endlessly about their beloved children and the shocking cost of private school fees and everything else, and who sit there constantly touching each other, finishing each other's sentences, and are all like, "Oh, where are you skiing this year? Oh no, you must, yeah, you must." So, child, you don't have any children? No, you must. You'll change your mind. You'll change your mind. You'll change your mind. It's gross. And I know you have quite strong feelings about smug marrieds as well, Kat.
Yes, but I think in this case, and to be fair, in the instance of some smugged married that I have known who are no longer smugged married, it is kind of, the lady doth protest too much. They are
Oh no, it's
very,
absolute
yes,
bullshit.
they are very showmance, without any real kind of
Yes.
depth to it. And I think that is what really lands on that rewatch. I think the first time you watch it, you're kind of like, this isn't Louis that we're used to seeing when he's with someone, because he was never like this with Lestat. But then with Lestat, it was an age where that kind of love had to be kept, more hidden. But
Mm.
when you rewatch it, knowing where this story goes and like Armand's like betrayal and all of the rest of it, it's like, yep, no, it's crystal clear that it's very fake, and they're both the stuff that they're saying has so many like double meanings to it. And yeah, it's really interesting to see with full of, with not with rose tinted glasses, but with the full information, that yeah, the signs were there.
Yes, because Louis and Armand have been together for like practically a century at this point. But I mean, this is not a happy marriage. I mean, as we find out, Louis was a drug addict at one point for years. He cheated repeatedly on Armand to the point where it was practically masochism of Armand to remain with him. And again, we get so much into it that it is all about repeating the cycles of what we've seen before. So Lestat cheated on Louis with Antoinette, caused him misery. And so, what does he do when he wants to weaponize his misery against Armand instead of withholding? Which I don't think that would work on Armand because I don't think he'd care. Like, I think if you don't declare your love to Armand, it's not going to bother him one iota. He's still going to be there, still going to be kind of suffocatingly do everything to you. Whereas Lestat's buttons are that he thinks he's never been loved and abandonment. And Louis used both of those repeatedly during his relationship with Lestat, um, as a means of punishing him for his misery. Whereas here he repeats what Lestat did to him by cheating constantly on Armand. Um, and yeah, I mean, just devastating. And there's always a lot of talk online with the fans about, Lestat's crimes. And of course, we find out really well, I mean, towards the end, Lestat needed to go, God bless him. But his single biggest crime is that he just doesn't tell Louis and Claudia about the covens.
Yes.
So they're out there thinking they've killed the big bad. They've killed the worst thing that's ever going to happen in their lives. Lestat's gone. They're free. And of course, they don't realize that in kind of the League of Vampires, Lestat is basically an orange cat. He's like just vibes, not tremendously bright. We love Lestat, but we never profess to claim that he's the brightest soul up there. He can't plan for shit. Everything he does is like there is. I mean, I would love to get Sam Reid and say, Sam, what was Lestat's plan? And I think he himself would go, who knows? In the whole the New Orleans Mardi Gras, because I don't think he had one. I think he just lost it at that point. But he doesn't warn them. And part of it is because there is a promise he makes to Marius, which I presume we will see in series 3. But the bottom line is, as we said about repeating the cycles of violence, that the way his family controlled him was by keeping him close in ignorance. They dragged him away from the monastery. They dragged him away from his acting troupe when every single time he tried to escape them. And his mother, very purposefully and very appallingly, did not teach him to read so that he could be kept in ignorance. And that's what, in his attempt to love Louis and Claudia, in his attempt to perhaps misguidingly keep them safe and to make sure that they never leave him, he simply doesn't fucking tell them the most important things, which is, oh, hey, all the other vampires out there are psychotic and will kill Claudia immediately because she should never have been made. Oh, and there are these like rules that people really focus on. And Coven life is like an exhausting guild with like politics and rules, and you probably shouldn't go anywhere near them, and you shouldn't go anywhere near, I'm guessing, like major cities. We've not really gotten into that, but I'm assuming that like every massive major city probably has some form of coven.
It would make sense. It would make sense for them. But even if Lestat was just like, maybe don't go to Paris, maybe not France.
I know that's the thing that kills me because all he says to them are the vampires out there are vicious. And obviously, we've not seen his viewpoint, and he recognizes instantly that Claudia has been terribly hurt by Bruce, but he's not, he doesn't have the capacity for empathy at that point. And what he should have done was shut the hell up instantly and looked after his daughter. But yeah, he could have just said, don't go to Paris. Don't go to Paris, babes. There's a little psychotic gremlin there. Don't do it. But he doesn't. And so, pretty much everything that then transpires, I mean, it's entirely at Armand's command. Everything that happens is Armand is the architect behind it all. But if Lestat had simply told them, they could have avoided it,
Hmm.
which makes me sad. And so, yeah, we start off with, we get this beautiful scene of Claudia and Louis on the statue, looking very Parisian, very chic. And while Louis is like rapturizing about how wonderful Paris is, well, Daniel's like, yeah, Paris sucks. Cafe culture is boring. Um, and like Louis like all happy and hopeful, and Claudia is, no one has enough cash for me. She's wearing the trinkets of all of her kills, and they are trying to find their way in the world. And what they don't know is that they have been effectively clocked by the Paris Coven the second they arrive.
I do enjoy how on that statue thing when they are talking about, Paris and it's, Louis, yeah, is very much defending, they've just, there's just been a world war, Claudia, people are still, but he is our bitchy little queen because he doesn't comment about the woman that he saw in a 5-year-old dress. Because
I know. This is what I love about Louis, and I feel people really, really underplay it. He is the biggest snob in the world. He is a pretentious snob, and I love that for him. I love that for a king because he grew up in a world which made him inferior due to his skin color. But he still didn't live the world that, say, Claudia lived because his family had a plantation. His family presumably had slaves, and I'm very, very glad that by this adaptation makes Louis's family sort of penniless apart from his activities. Because we could not possibly have had him as a slave owner, dear God. But by the same token, we still continue with his cheerful exploitation of people by having him run the brothels and own the brothels. And like he gets together with Lestat, and what's the first thing he wants? A fancier brothel. I mean, he is, and then the whole thing about him being the art dealer, it's all about him being as pretentious as he can possibly be. We have throughout this episode the bacon triptych very visibly behind them is again another kind of visual warning of everything's not okay here. Everything's not good. I love how completely wildly unimpressed Daniel is throughout all of this. And Louis is talking about, how great Paris is and how wonderful Paris is. And then he says the line, I'm just grateful no one wanted to lynch me. And it really hits like a freight train. Absolutely hits like a freight train, because the truth is the Coven want to do that from the second he arrives.
Yeah.
And it's also really sort of fascinating to me that, Louis lived this quite privileged life in New Orleans because of the money. So he was never equal in society because he never could be equal in society because of the horrific racism. But the money, and then later Lestat's money, shielded that from him to an extent. And it was only towards the end when everybody was like, we've had enough of these guys. Like, everyone knew they were husbands and was willing to overlook that because they've got cash. But towards the end, he's black, they're very clearly queer, and they're not aging. They had significantly overstayed their welcome. They had to go. But I guess Louis was so used to people just being horrifically racist to his face that it doesn't seem to have occurred to him that people can be so insidiously racist underneath while smiling beautifully at him. Because I guess none of the white men we see him deal with in New Orleans does anything other than treat him with absolute contempt.
Yeah.
They call him boy. They try and steal his business. They talk about him being, what is it, a helpful Negro or something in the first episode. There is no attempt that they are polite and lovely and sweet to Lestat, because Lestat's white and Lestat's got cash. But there is never a single second in New Orleans where it is not clear in their interactions that they consider Louis to be significantly beneath them due to the color of his skin. Whereas in Paris, I mean, I think the Coven is horrifically racist from minute one. It's just hidden. And I'm like, Louis, again, my sweet angel, you've sort of been, I suppose you're so used to such overt racism that he hasn't quite seen the more insidious kinds yet. How people can smile beautifully at you and wish nothing but your death. Because it's like how we see the Coven being like, ugh, gauche. They feel Louis and Claudia are beneath them from minute one.
Yeah, and I think even the race side of things apart, Louis is just used to dealing with people that are quite honest in their dislike and
Yes.
distrust. Even within his family, when his sister and his mother sort of turn on him, he is used to people being upfront. I guess that's, you could argue, the American way is to be,
Yeah.
bold and upfront, whereas I guess a more European version of interaction is to be very polite to people, to their face, and then say what you really mean behind their back. And it's that aspect as well, like the race card aside, just the fact that he doesn't realize the politics of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
And
whole
that's what you just said is underpins Louis entirely in the second series, and it comes back again and again. He doesn't understand the politics of people. He doesn't get it because, as you said, I think he's used to being in control for a start, because he was always in control of his brothels. He was in charge of the Azalea. He didn't have that control in his relationship with Lestat, except he did. He was never at any second not in control of that relationship. God bless him. He just didn't realize it, because all he saw was white man with power withholding information from him, and that's true. But, all he has to do is threaten to leave, and Lestat would give him the world. He was always in control. But he comes here, and yeah, he doesn't understand the politics of the Coven. He doesn't understand the situation that Armand is in. He doesn't understand that people will loathe him simply for being a new vampire. Yeah, he doesn't get politics. He's shit at team dynamics. I'm like, Louis, how did you get this far? And as such a businessman and not be able to read people because he can't. I mean, that's behind all of it. He's just goes blithely through life. And if he'd sort of realized that the covens, or really, I suppose he didn't know about the covens, but if he treated it all as psychotic amateur dramatic societies, he would have understood. He would have understood the degree of politics and bickering and backstabbing, but none of that seems to occur. He just takes them all at face value, and it's a horrific, horrific mistake. And then we get in the present day the absolutely classic line of Armand telling Daniel how long they've been together because he cannot resist pointing out that he's been with Louis for 77 years, 47 more than he had with Lestat. He is such a petty king. I love him so much. And Daniel's not buying a word of this. He's like, yeah, keep selling it. And as a man, as Armand, is so funny. I don't think he really gets credit enough for how funny he is. Like when Louis is discussing where they lived, and Armand's like, yeah, that was a perfect setup, obviously, because you lived one floor above the owners, and one floor below the students and the sex workers, all of whom had a desire to basically turn you in. And again, Louis doesn't realize that. I thought it was hilarious. So he's like, oh yeah, you were perfectly situated. I was like, oh, that's sad. You are very funny. And this is where we find out that the coven has been watching Louis for a full 5 months before they decide to go and see them. So that's been 5 months of cleaning up Louis and Claudia's awkward kills because they've been dumping them in the waterways. And I think as we come to find out, 5 months with the coven resenting them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I can imagine that, like, okay, so let's say we are heads of the London Coven, and these American vampires appear. We would be heads of the London Coven, just to be clear. These vampires appear, and like they're just dumping their shit everywhere. I've got to go out and clean it all up. I'd be grumpy, but I also wouldn't wait 5 months before I approach them. That's a very Armand thing to do. So Armand spends all of those 5 months basically watching, understanding, and the one thing I'm desperate to find out in series 3 is the key question of how long Lestat is in Paris for.
Yeah.
Because if Roland really wants to destroy us and break our hearts, I think it's entirely possible that he is already in captivity at the point at which they meet the coven. Might not be, but that would be a really vicious thing to do. Because they watch them for 5 months. So that's 5 months of trying to see who they are. And during that time, I mean, Armand already knows Lestat. We know how strong he is. If Armand already reaches out to Lestat during that time, there's plenty of time to bring him over to Paris with fake promises. In the book, he promises that he will heal him and in return, Lestat agrees to testify at the trial purely on the grounds that they let Louis go. So we'll have to see how they choose to do it in series 3, because I think that's probably the only aspect that they will revisit is the trial. I'm not sure they're going to revisit much else. But that would be good to get different scenes with Claudia. But my take has always been, and it will now be changed, that they have Lestat at the point at which they invite Louis and Claudia to the first play. That's my headcanon. So the entire time they're doing all of this, they have Lestat and they know precisely who they are.
Yeah, and that would make sense for them to still have Lestat's portrait up on the wall. Obviously, you could say that, oh, well, he was one of the founders, and these sorts of places are very steeped in history and nostalgia. So yeah, they would have, potentially have their founder's picture on the wall. But then there's also the other way of that of, well, let's put that picture up there and let's watch their reaction because we know the truth. Let's see how they respond to this stimulus.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's a mark of viciousness in itself to have Lestat's portrait on that wall because yes, he created the theatre with Armand, but it is the place that took Nikki from him, the place that drove Nikki to madness and drove him to kill himself. So for him to be on this place of death, which ultimately claims the life of his daughter, is really horrible. I mean, very Armand, very Armand. And I mean, Armand's sitting there, and because Daniel's like, "Are you going to complete each other's sentences?" Ugh. But it's just another way of controlling the narrative, isn't it? Because if he's there with him, he can control every single aspect of it. And we find out that Louis has taken up photography. Armand is very unimpressed at vampires having hobbies, which is hilarious considering he's a theatre director.
Yeah, but that's not a hobby. That's a profession, Naomi. That's a
Oh, I see. That's his calling, is it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just a way of munching people without being caught. You've got Louis. I mean, there are two clear merchandising opportunities in this episode that AMC has bewilderingly chosen to do nothing with. And the first is the photographs. I have no idea why they didn't get the cast to pose for Polaroids or, photos that they could resell as like fake Polaroids and sell them to us because people would buy them in a heartbeat. And I was just like, why are you leaving so much money on the table? AMC is so strange. All their merchandise has been so terrible. I'm just going to say this every episode in the hope that some intern is listening and writing it down each time as feedback. All the fans think your merch is shit because it is. When I went to New York Comic Con, I didn't see a single official item. Everyone was wearing fan made merch. Why? We get in Paris that beautiful scene of Claudia and Louis in the cafe. I think Delaney Hales looks absolutely stunning in this sequence where she's wearing the sort of the russet herringbone suit. So, so beautiful. And there's already kind of mild cracks in the relationship because Claudia is miserable and they've sort of just been together too long. I mean, so this has been 5 months in Paris. And then what did we work out? It was like years, wasn't it? Wandering around Romania and everywhere else trying to find vampires. So we find the date in this episode. It's like February 1914 was the last that anyone heard from Lestat. And this is sort of post war. So it's been from probably it must be 1940 actually, but they've not been to they've sorry, I'm getting myself my words are going. They've been together for a very, very long time at this point, just the two of them, and that would drive anybody clinically insane. It's just not going to work. And this is where we get little sniping because Claudia's like, "Shut up, Louis, you're wildly pretentious." He's like, "Hey, let a brother think he's that I'm deeper than I am." And he's all very light and very joking, but Claudia is done. And that's when she asks him, "What are you outside of me? If there was no me and there was no him, who would you be?" And Louis has no answer to that. And I don't think Louis in the show so far has an answer to that. And I think that's what we'll see in series 3. Because Louis leaps straight from Lestat to Armand, and he doesn't have to work out who he is on his own. Because he is very content. He's like that person that you always see in the memes that just can't be alone and just goes from partner to partner. And so series 3 we'll get to see who Louis is on his own and who he is outside of them. And I suspect it is a slightly more fragile, but hopefully slightly more honest and hopeful soul. But I love him saying that he's the reticent vampire of the arrondissement. And then we have Daniel being like, Paris sucks again. Going, yeah, Claudia is miserable, but she didn't want to fuck with your delusional left bank dilettante vibe. Whoa, I mean the lines. Is that when he says that macarons are shit?
I think that's with that, like when he's like dissing cafes and everything. It's also like, macarons are bullshit. I mean, they're not Daniel, I respectfully disagree with you.
Cat loves her macarons. What's your favorite flavor?
I think that's the great thing about macarons. You can have absolutely anything. Absolutely anything. So,
I quite like it when they do like a little rose or a rose lychee.
yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever met a macaron that I didn't like. So, um, although, the ones that we had with the activated charcoal in, they were an experience.
Oh yeah, we went to a pop-up that had macarons with activated charcoal, and it's all very fine, except, without wishing to get into it, it does do a number on your digestive tract for several days afterwards. Avoid activated charcoal. Let's not be putting that in any of our food and drink for promo activities. It's a strange choice. I'm not tremendous. Sometimes the vanillas and the coffees can be a bit insipid, but I do love a pistachio. Do love a pistachio. I love that Armand, throughout this entire present day episode, is eye fucking the hell out of Daniel. Is this appropriate behavior when you are sat next to your husband and you are trying to pretend that you are like the most in love anyone has ever been? No, no. It's weird, Armand. That's why I love you, you little strange-eyed orange gremlin. Because he's just sat there with like these massive orange eyes, like, hi, I love you. And like, no, it's very unsettling. Very unsettling. And this is the first mention of Alice in this episode, but Daniel's having none of it, doesn't care, doesn't want to be triggered. But they're trying to, Armand from minute one tries to take the approach of wrong-footing Daniel so that he kind of doesn't look too closely at the lovey-doveyness. And then we get our first look at Madeline in the glow of candlelight. It's beautiful, beautiful intro to her. Typical Claudia, that upon being told immediately by the guy outside not to go near her with the suggestion that she's a Nazi, immediately opens the door. It's like Claudia is such her father's daughter. Like, you tell Lestat to do something, he's going to do the complete opposite. Same here. She opens the door instantly. And our first introduction to Madeline, she's a delightfully rude Parisian who is having none of what she thinks is the tiny American girl who's come to bother her. We still have the slight visual problem throughout all of this series that Delaney Hale does not look like a child. Delaney Hales is just a beautiful short queen. As a short queen myself, I feel her. But I mean, she kind of looks, I don't know. I'm 5'2". She sort of looks like around my height. No one would be mistaking me for a child. And Delaney's in, I'm guessing, her early 20s-ish. But she doesn't look, and that's absolutely fine, but she doesn't look young enough to be calling her mademoiselle. And I do sometimes wish they tweaked some of the lines slightly, but Madeline's having absolutely none of it and is like, get the fuck out of my chic establishment. And Claudia's like, you will not. I have cash. Make me a beautiful outfit. Take that dress in, which she does so that with checking on the desk all of the cash that she's stolen from her victims. Then we have real Rashid, who by this point is very sick of being called real Rashid. And we show all the photos that Louis has taken. I kind of love that the one thing that really seems to weird Daniel out is the fact that Louis took pictures of their thirds. I mean, I was just like, I'm not sure why that, of all the things you've heard, is the thing that seems to be like, oh, I'm not sure about that. That's slightly odd because Armand is sort of like very sort of welling up and like, well, not welling up, but kind of speaking very fondly of the people that they'd taken, the young men that they'd taken back to their beds, and how some of them were still alive and some of them were dead, and some of them Armand joined for sport. And Daniel's like, no, no. Having swinging is one thing, draining them seems to be another. That seems to be where Daniel draws the line. And then we have an intro to basically Louis cruising, because Louis is Louis. I love that he describes himself as an armored thing. I think that was a beautiful, beautiful description of who he is in those days, because he's trying to be true to himself, but obviously he's very guarded and very worried after what happened with Lestat. And again, we have Armand trying to control the narrative because, like Louis says, I'll describe it myself, thank you. Stop trying to wield it to your way. And then we get our first meet cute. And it is adorable, this first meet cute. It's very sweet. It's really clever costuming to have Armand, who doesn't really look young in any other scene. And I mean, Assad Zaman is a ridiculously handsome human being. He has beautiful, beautiful skin, and he has this incredible ethereal look to him as Armand. But he never looks like a child. He always looks like, oh, you don't want to fuck with him. This is something other that you should be slightly worried about. Whereas in this scene, they dress him as a kid. And I love that. It's very clever because they have Louis saying he looks like a boy masquerading as a gentleman because they put him in that ridiculous hat. And I'm like, again, how much of this is Armand is a theatre director?
Yes.
So I love the idea that Armand has dressed in an oversized suit and a massive hat to go and introduce himself to Louis, to kind of get the lay of the land, knowing that it will make him look weaker and younger than Louis in that moment. God, he's such a theatre queen. I love him.
And also, he's had 5 months to plan this meeting as well. So he's had that time to, as you say, work out the exact perfect way to introduce himself in such a way that he doesn't come over as a threat.
Yes. I mean, I've never bought that they didn't love each other. I think that they did love each other, but it is horrifically toxic because, every step of it is engineered. Every step of it from minute one is engineered by Armand. The meeting, everything that happens. We were laughing, weren't we, the other day at the brilliant gentleman on TikTok that does the Armand impressions, where he's nonchalantly hoovering up Claudia and Madeline's remains while going, I'm so sorry that Lestat did this to you, and only Lestat. He is exceptional. He's very, very funny. But yeah, everything Armand does is carefully crafted. And I don't think that means he didn't love Louis. I just think that Armand doesn't understand what love is. For Armand, taking Louis, keeping Louis with him, cleaning up his messes, keeping him safe from everybody else, and what he considers, in his opinion, to be keeping him safe from himself, which presumably means keeping Lestat away from him until the trial, gaslighting him, not telling him about Claudia, all of that, as far as Armand is concerned, that is him loving him. That is him protecting him. What greater love is there? He keeps Louis safe. He just does it by massacring everyone around him. I mean, that guy just didn't want to be a stepdaddy. He just really didn't. He was like, fuck them kids. I just want this adorably cute American. We're gonna go live a life together. Plus, more importantly, everything Armand does is about Lestat. Everything he does is about Lestat. Lestat, I'm going to be intrigued in series 3 as to whether we actually have Armand and Lestat together, because I don't think they were really together in the books. They love each other, but it's kind of like a frenemy type situation. They certainly weren't romantic. So we'll see where they go with it. But this is him having Louis is all about him not being able to have Lestat because the boy is not well. But again, that doesn't mean he doesn't love Louis. It's just that his love is horrifically toxic. So yeah, we have this beautiful, romantic, meet cute. It is stunningly shot by Levan Aiken. And what are Armand's first line to Louis? I will not harm you, and I never have.
Yeah. Technically true.
Technically accurate, you see. It is technically accurate. I mean, it's the sun that kills Claudia, but it's just that the sun had a helping hand. And Asad Zaman is so good. There is this tiny little flicker after he says, and I never have, and he holds Louis' arm. There is this instant, tiniest little flicker of, I mean, not really. There's this thing of, I'm not even sure you can call it remorse because I don't believe that someone feels remorse, because for him to feel remorse, he would have to believe that what he's done was wrong, and he doesn't. I don't think Armand thinks a single thing he's done has ever been wrong in his life.
No, I agree.
But yeah, but there's definitely this moment of, oh shit, when he says that, and that's so clever. And he is just completely otherworldly and ethereal in all the sequences in the present day. I mean, God, can we get his skincare routine? Asad, you've got an Instagram. Drop the skincare routine, King. Also, drop the curl routine. The curls look incredible. But yes, he meets Louis and he gives him his business card. And I mean, Louis is just surrounded by jobless husbands giving him business cards. I mean, I'm sure our mom would not say he was jobless as the theatre director, but yes, he is. He is. And Claudia is so excited, and it just hurts my heart. And then we have our first big scene in the Theatre de Vampires, and it kind of does look as I wanted it to. It's like, it's kind of crappy. I think here we'd probably call it like end of pier regional type theatre. So Not one of the slick ones, not one of the big ones, a little bit shambolic, a little bit falling down around the edges, but with a devoted following. Um, I have never wanted anything more in my life than to know more about the groupies. Can you imagine being like an apt, because they dress up as the vampires, don't they? And they're in the front row cackling, and they are grotesque. And I've also been fascinated that in pure um, theatre style, that the company hasn't drained them.
They've got to get the word of mouth there, haven't they? They've got to have their fans. And I enjoy that it is a little nod to, even way back then, there were people who were obsessed with the theatre. I mean, I think we've both been to shows and stuff that have got a rabid viewership.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rabid, rabid. Good luck. I mean, at the moment, we're about to Sunday in the Park with George is about to go on sale in a few months here. Um, this is a side topic I appreciate. Firstly, we just need to address the fact that this is the most, I mean, I like Sondheim, but I find some of his work a bit dense, shall we say. And this is a play all about the nature of art. It's a bit kind of esoteric, and it's going to have an audience of very, very young Ariana Grande fans sat in the audience.
Been warned to not have their cameras out, which in itself is like good luck. I hope that the theatre staff gets paid like triple time for any shows that they do with that, because good luck.
Well, I've been here before because I, way back when, ran a Cumberbatch fan site. And of course, when he was in Hamlet, it was the same thing. I literally helped the Barbican write all their list of rules and FAQs. I very much loved that all of the Ariana fans on uh, Twitter were basically writing little messages to the other fans, basically saying, "This isn't a concert, so you can't have your phones and photos out." I love that. I love that. It was like fans helping fans and trying to teach them etiquette. And but it is going to be obscene. But yeah, I mean that's kind of a classic example of something that's going to have the most rabid audience around it. Rachel Ziegler, just now in Evita, that was hugely popular. There was, I think she sang "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," Tina, to literally hundreds of thousands of people outside over the course of the run. There was hundreds queued up to see her every single night.
But then obviously, like all of those examples are, they are famous people who, have been, famous
Yes.
musicians or actors. But like I'm talking about like smaller shows like the Heathers musical or the Bat Out of Hell musical,
Oh, Six.
for
Yes,
example.
Six as well. Things like that. They love the Queens and Six,
Yeah, but
don't
it's like, I
they?
mean, like Bat Out of, obviously again, Six has, gone on to be this big worldwide thing. Like Bat Out of Hell the musical is this kind of small thing. Obviously, yeah, the music of Meatloaf was really popular, but like the show they ended up kind of stripping all the way back to basically just a concert with a couple of like scenes that interconnected the songs. It's where it ended up most on the most recent tour is very different to where it started out. But there is,
Oh yeah.
Facebook groups and Twitter pages of people who have seen this show hundreds of times, and they go dressed up as Raven or Strat or Sloane or Falco. And I think,
Amazing.
and that is
Amazing.
kind of the level that the Theatre de Vampire is. It's not like, oh my God,
Mm.
Ariana or Rachel or Benedict.
Yeah.
This is just some fairly new face to the theatre scene. I mean, I think the original Strat, Andrew Pollack, he's gone back to America, and he's been the Grinch for like the last 3 or 4 years in the New York production of The Grinch. And the original Raven, Christina Bennington, she has gone on to do some TV work. She's in like Paramount show at the moment, and she was in the Halo TV series, I want to say. And so but again, it's like this fandom is now following their career in any sideshow they do when, they get announced as the ensemble cast member in another production. They're all going, and they're all still going dressed as Bat Out of Hell. I just think it's the devotion that people put into it is incredible. And here we have it represented all the way back, in, Parisian France.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, theatre fans. I mean, I have been to so many different shows, and I stage door a fair bit, but only when I've seen the show. But the sheer number of people that will come for, as you said, that one ensemble part actor that they've seen in five different things, and they will often want to be have something signed, which will be a photo of them with that actor. I love that for them. I love that. Yeah, the dedication. When I saw Bad Out of Hell, I was surrounded by a group of women in shirts who were seeing it for the fourth time that week. Queens having the best time of their lives. See, we got free will, we got cash, the world is burning. Go see your faves. So obviously, in post-war France, the faves enjoyed dressing up as ghoulish vampires and clapping in the front row. I also loved that we had a little glimpse of theatre folk being absolutely fucking fed up at the stands in the little moment where Santiago glares at them for repeating his line along with him, which I thought was very, very funny. But yes, we get our first night at the theatre. Armand is wearing his very best suit to show off. And we meet Ben Daniels as Santiago. And we have to give Ben Daniels all the love in the world. He is an incredible actor. And he's the nicest man in the world. I've met him a couple of times. And my friend Emma and we went and saw him recently in Proof in Bath, and he's about to be at a play at the National Theatre. So, Interview the Vampire fans, please do go see him. He's lovely. And he is absolutely mesmerizing in this entire sequence. When he first locks eyes on Claudia, when the tone shifts in his big, gross, hammy monologue that he's doing. I should have said grand monologue there, not gross. Very different, but it is gross. All of it's unpleasant. But when he's doing this big grand monologue about why the audience and everything else, and then the tone shifts, and when he locks eyes on Claudia, it really is quite frightening. I love that Louis is so profoundly unimpressed throughout the whole of it, because Louis wasn't unimpressed with the theatre when Lestat was by his side. He secretly loved it. He just didn't like to make it clear that he did. But when he never loves this from the start. He's all the shots of Jacob Anderson just doing the what the fuck face made me so happy throughout this. He's like, what is going on? Whereas Claudia is absolutely rapt. And you've got Armand in the background giving, pretentious theatre auteur. I would like to know, I love the fact that they've got like vampire animators busy doing the beautiful projections. I love that everyone is like very employed. And the shift from the hammy tone of, oh, you're all here, you're all complicit, to the moment when the real life victim appears on the stage. It's really unpleasant to watch.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sequences in the original film because obviously they have a similar theme
Yes.
there. I mean, the woman in the film wears far less clothes, but it's
Yes, she is topless for no reason whatsoever.
but it's always a fascinating scene because it is this thing of, the audience comes in night after night to without fully realizing it to watch somebody get murdered, but they're quite willing to spend to suspend their belief and just go, oh yeah, no, this is just part of the show. This is just really good practical effects for this like really kitsch show that we sat through. Like it's a really really lifelike cadaver that they've got there.
And it's such a clever scene as well. And I mean, obviously, as you said, it's in the book, it's in the film, it's very, very faithful. adaptation of the sequence in the book. But it shows the absolute brutality and mercilessness of the Paris Coven, because this whole sequence is just cruel. They could have killed her in a multitude of different ways. They could have made it quick. They could have done anything. Instead, they have her come on screaming, begging for her life. They threaten her husband. They threaten her child. They bring the audience into it by making her effectively choose another member of the audience to die in her place, which she does in a heartbeat, which isn't great of her, but if you were terrified and thought they were actual vampires, yeah, I mean, there's no blame attached to her in that moment. She's scared out of her wits. But they make her do that. They make her basically pick someone in the audience. Then we have that whole sequence of Daniels saying, when you're in the church and they say, peace be unto you, remember that they will give you up in a heartbeat. And it's just so cruel. And it is who the Paris Coven are,
Yeah.
and they show you that from minute one. They show you who these people are. They are awful and vicious and merciless. And Claudia is completely delighted by the cruelty because she is daddy's little girl. And Lestat did love to play with his food. But they are god awful. And the bit that I really hate, which again was in the film, is that they have Santiago seduce her, and they could have just killed her in that mesmerized state. But he pulls her out of it so that when there's the flash and all the vampires surround her, she dies screaming.
Well, I mean, they say that fear tastes better, don't they? So that's obviously to get that. But I think it's just the fact that Claudia is watching it, and in so many ways, it mirrors what they do with her. They draw her in,
Yeah, it's
they put this
horrible.
glamour up for her, they
It's so
mesmerize
horrible.
her
It's
into
so
joining,
horrible.
and then, they pull the rug out from her as well. And yeah, it's again, it's a show that has such great rewatchability.
Such a good scene. Such a good scene. Because yeah, she's so ecstatic. Because and again, like Louis, we say that he's not good at politics, and he isn't. He's terrible. He's genuinely terrible. But he has incredibly good instincts. And his instincts all the way through this are absolute disgust. And he should have run. He should have trusted those instincts and run. But boy gets a bit horny and he's both horny and he wants to keep Claudia happy. And these are twin desires that tend to ruin him. He wants to keep his baby girl happy. And, he wants a little something, something. I mean, the man has been, well, only got to live a life with Lestat, and as you said, not an open life. Now he sees the prospect of a lovely little summer fling. Of course he's excited. But yeah, it's that scene, I had not realized what a hard scene that is to rewatch, because you're absolutely right. It completely parallels what they do with Claudia at the end, and it's just horrible, particularly as it ends with Santiago giving Louis this cheeky little wink. Ugh. And then we have Louis and Claudia meeting the coven, and everyone's having a wonderful time showing off. And then they all start by being mean, and then it's a funny joke. But again, this kind of depends on when they get Lestat. Because if they already have Lestat at this point, then their opening sort of salvos to Louis and Claudia are precisely how they feel. It's not a joke. I mean, regardless, at this point, Armand knows. The only question is whether the coven knows. Because I think because we say all the way through, and Armand tells him Louis is no good at hiding his thoughts. Claudia is, but Louis isn't. So he's absolutely no good at it. So, and I mean, if Armand has been in touch with Lestat anyway, he's going to know who Louis and Claudia are via Lestat, whether he's in Paris at this point or not. But yeah, it's this sort of edge of menace to all of their interactions. And that never really goes away. And you just want to be like, Louis, trust your instincts, because his instincts after this initial meeting is to run. And he should have trusted that. Should have trusted that. I mean, I don't know if he'd run to any other major city, whether it would have been different. Still would have breached the laws, still would have Claudia, but you wouldn't have a beautiful psychopathic little gremlin that is obsessed with your maker. Because that's the thing, it is the Lestat of it that causes all of this. If they'd been anywhere else, they would know who Lestat is, but they wouldn't have the same confused, let's call it confused feelings for him that Armand does. And so we have him being introduced to all the coven members, including Sam, who gets to be very important later on, and he just gets that very brief intro. We have Santiago saying "love the dress," which upsets me horrifically every single time when you rewatch it. It's just so upsetting. And then we get into my other big problem with Louis and Claudia in this season, apart from Louis being terrible at politics. How the fuck did they not have their story straight?
Yeah, I mean, considering they've been traveling across, war-torn Europe looking for other vampires, and considering that Claudia has, met another vampire before, she met Bruce and it went epically, horrifically, you'd think that she would want some kind of story in place because her story with Bruce instantly fell apart. And that's what put her into a vulnerable
Yes,
position. So you would have thought that she would be like, okay, well, we're actively seeking out some vampires. Let's get our story straight. I mean, regardless of vampire rules that they do or do not know about, like they have murdered one of their own. Regardless of anything else, that they understand that that is not something that you want to probably let new potential vampire friends know, is that you'll quite happily you know leave somebody for dead. That's not how you make friends. I don't think so. Yeah, the story should have been a bit more prepared.
I think for me, it's always this thing of Claudia thought that Lestat was the big villain in her life. He was the single biggest obstacle that she had to overcome and remove for her to live the life that she wanted to live. And I'm going to be fascinated to see if they adapt the part where we realize that she chose Lestat for that over Louis, having had somewhat nonchalant feelings for both of them, because at that point she felt like they were her captors and she wanted to be free. And so she manipulates Louis into killing Lestat because she knows that she will never ever be able to manipulate Lestat into killing Louis. That's never happening. Um, and I've never felt I like people get very upset at the suggestions that the diaries are fake or anything like that. I don't see how that is anything other than absolutely true to Claudia's character and true to her brilliance. Of course she would do that. She was fed up with these mentally ill gay men in their epic romance. She wanted her own
Yeah.
life. Of course, she was going to do whatever she needed to do to be free. Do what you have to do, my queen. Be free. But she ends up in Paris, and I think she thinks at that point that she's won. But you're right, I've never quite understood why, given the truly horrific nature of her interaction with Bruce, why she wasn't more worried about meeting other vampires. because she meets Bruce, and he is, unfortunately, a horrific predator who thinks nothing of sexually assaulting her. And we've spoken at length before about how that's our least favorite trope in the world, and that it's the one thing I really have qualms about with the series, that they aged her up in order to have her be kidnapped and raped for a week so that they could parallel Lestat's treatment at the hands of Magnus. And I get it, but let's not have women be raped in media for to enrich the stories of men, please. I'm done with this shit. We're both done with the shit because it's in so many horror movies. So many. And it's just tiring. But yeah, how did you not have your story straight? First vampire she meets, other than Louis and Lestat, is a man that kidnaps her for a week and sexually assaults her. How, even if you thought you were free of it, even if you thought, okay, there's something weird and awful about American or like French, Lestat's French. Like how did you arrive in Paris and you've now faced with an entire sea of other vampires? How did you walk into that theater that night and not have every single beat of your story down? Because they could have killed them there and then. Because they just don't fear them, I think. Because I think that Claudia is living high on the fact that she outsmarted Lestat. But unfortunately, as we've said, outsmarting Lestat is a little bit like outsmarting a big ginger cat. Like, that's going to work for 5 minutes, but the cat's not really all that bothered. Just going to come back for more. It's not, she's dealing with very different people here. And I don't think it's arrogance. I think, again, as we've said, this is all Lestat's fault. Because if he had simply told them, she would have more of an awareness and not a fear. Well, I suppose he did try and instill fear in them, but she would have been and understood that she needed to be much more worried about this coven than they are at any given point. I loathe the fact that she goes from calling Lestat her jailer to calling Armand maître. It's deeply, deeply unpleasant to me. Because Claudia should not be that subservient to anybody. She is a queen. She calls nobody master. Gross. But yeah, no story straight. So then we have to fumble through Bruce being their maker and throwing himself into the fire. And I don't think a single member of that coven buys that. Even if they don't know about Lestat at that moment, I don't think a single person in that room believes Claudia's story. And that makes me very, very sad. Because I just sort of like want to rush into the screen and be like, Claudia, run, my angel. Be safe. Be free. But yes. And then we have the absolutely iconic sequence of Eric Bogosian, who is very, very funny. Taking the mickey out of the fact that the portrait is on the wall and saying it's a telenovela. It's a really funny sequence. It's so beautifully.
By this point, he's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, I'm done with this nonsense. I'm done with this. His glee at the line, "You both fucked Lestat," is hilarious. And we will find out how true that statement is. And again, another iconic line about Lestat tasting of vermouth and Annihilation. Amazing. The Annihilation bit in series 3, definitely. We've seen him, probably vermouth, but I feel like Lestat would probably taste more of absinthe. But yeah, they should have left immediately and run screaming at that point. But Claudia is just entranced, as you said, like the victim on the stage. And she's very like, vampire first, vampire pride. Whereas Louis is like, no, let's go. And he should have stuck to that instinct. Louis has incredible instincts. He's a people pleaser, is Louis. He's a little bit of a people pleaser. Not with Lestat, because withholding was his means of power, but with others, he's quite a people pleaser.
Is that a middle child thing?
Yeah, probably.
Because he's the middle child, isn't he? It's a younger sister and an older brother. Uh, the middle child is the one that kind of like gets forgotten about, isn't it? So I guess there is a lot of people pleasing that goes into that because they kind of end up by default being kind of like the negotiator between the warring older sibling and stuff. So yeah, maybe it's just something from the way he was raised.
Yeah, because he was always trying to. His father was obviously no good and left them to ruin, so he had to go out and provide for his family, but he's always having to appease his mother, appease his sister, look after his brother. So yeah, he's always dealing with chaos. He's always dealing with chaos. And then we get the really unfortunate line of Claudia gleefully telling Louis that she could read his mind when he's thinking of Armand. Blood, blood, fat cock slapping hands. Ew! Claudia, no. Stay out of your father's mind. This is not an appropriate behavior. So yeah, I mean, Louis is a little horny, and why wouldn't he be? Armand is very handsome. He should have run. He should have run. And instead, he decides, instead of seeing the coven as a threat, Louis goes, I need to check that Lestat is dead, so he's not going to make an unexpected appearance and fuck up our lives with this coven and potentially ruin my budding romance with this handsome theatre auteur. So he goes to Roger. He bumbles his way through a speech, which again is pointless because Roger knows precisely that Louis is his husband from minute one. And then we get the most romantic scene in the series, which is so beautiful. And the second clear merch opportunity that I do not understand why AMC has not capitalized on. Because replicas of that letter, sequences from the letter on jewelry, on things, on hoodies, people would buy it. People would buy it. Why are you not clever, AMC? It makes me sad. My only issue with this sequence was the truly bizarre decision to get the GHDs out and straighten Sam Reed's hair. Why in this sequence does Lestat have this poofy, blow-dried, straight hair?
Do you know, maybe because I don't know. I mean, Louis had his head turned now, so maybe he's trying to make Lestat not as hot in his imagination. I don't know.
Maybe he's misremembering. I don't know, but like Lestat has like wavy hair everywhere else except for in this one sequence where it has been blow dried completely straight. I was like, was it pissing it down? Did we have limited time to film this scene? Did we decide that straighteners were the only way to get Sam Reed's hair manageable? Who knows? His hair is not great in this sequence, but I love that he is dressed very similarly to how he is dressed when he goes to meet Louis' mother the first time. He's got like the green tie and the white rose pinhole. And it is so, so beautiful and so Lestat. Because again, I have to assume that Lestat wrote this letter after he knew about Louis and Claudia's plot against him.
Yes, it definitely feels that way, and it's there to say his feelings, but also to incite guilt.
Yes, because he's a petty king. This is a problem. Louis, you are surrounding yourself with petty diva kings. For God's sake, just find someone normal, somebody boring, somebody to keep you happy that does not do this sort of thing. Because the line, let treachery eat at them from within. Come on, Lestat. That's so vicious. But yeah, you are the one being whom I love above and beyond myself. All my love belongs to you. You are its keeper. I mean, it is beautifully, beautifully written. It is beautifully performed by Sam Reid. I think people have gotten tattoos of it. I think people get tattoos from this sequence and the marriage sequence, the lines. But yeah, all my love belongs to you. You are its keeper is such a beautiful line. And the line about being separated by a thin veil and being pressed up against it, being pressed up against your longing. It's makes me cry a bit. I'm like, why doesn't someone write a letter like that for me? I don't think my jellycats are sentient, so I can't do it. It is an exquisite piece of writing. It is achingly beautiful, achingly romantic, as befits, the grand gothic romance of the show. And it is probably this letter and Armand and Louis' fight are the two pieces that you can pretty much recite off by heart. That and weirdly, because we've not even had it yet, this series 3, I bet sequence, which we've not even seen in context yet. But it's already super iconic. But yeah, it is beautiful. And Daniel is good, but Daniel sometimes doesn't have good instincts. And he has very bad instincts in this moment to not treat this, Louis describing this scene with the reverence it deserves. And he goes on to call Armand the rebound of his life. And it's fascinating that the second you question Louis' love for Lestat, even if he never told him, he viciously attacks. And he immediately goes for Daniel and what he thinks will hurt Daniel the most, talking about Daniel's proposal to Alice and how Alice turned him down. And it is so incredibly unkind. And it's perfectly Louis. He is by far, I would say, the most vicious of the vampires. I mean, Armand is the most powerful and the most twisted. Lestat is the most explosive, the one you would be. I mean, like when he drops Louis, it's pure abandoned husband, isn't it? The guy you always worry is going to kill you rather than let you go. But Louis is still the one I'd be worried about. You could handle Lestat quite easily. You could probably handle Armand with a great deal of care. But you get on the wrong side of Louis, he's going to just kill you.
Yeah.
You're gone. You're just fucking gone. And yeah, he just immediately goes for the jugular. He visibly unsettles Daniel. It's the oldest Eric Bogosian's ever looked in that sequence because he looks a bit sort of frail and doddery. And this is where we get the line about Daniel feeling safe to hold Alice's hand in Paris. And I've never, or having the confidence to do so, I've never ascribed the belief that Alice is Armand, but I do think that Daniel's time with Armand is entirely mixed up in his memories with Alice. And I think that one line is not about Alice, it's about Armand. And this is the first time we suddenly, because he's already aware, he's already started to have flashbacks of Armand towards the end of the first series. And this is where we get his first real flashback of, a slightly unhinged 1970s Armand talking to him directly. And Daniel is very like chastened by the end of this. And of course, Armand being Armand is like, oh yeah, well, I've just seen my love of my life be absolutely feral and decimate you in the cruelest way possible. But let's just continue with a little bit more reverence and dignity, shall we? Because nothing bothers him. And that is the thing as well. Armand is a very polite monster. I love that. He's horrific, but he does it in this like lovely, polite way. Cleans everything up beautifully. He's very tidy monster. Um, and then we go back to our meet cute. They decide to go on a hunt together. All of the coven go on this huge hunt, which Louis chooses not to take part of. Because again, that's true to Louis. He wouldn't take part, would he? Whereas Claudia is having the time of her life. I love perfectly suits their relationship that we have. It's really very, very sweet, very romantic, kind of adorable meet cute against this backdrop of violence and chaos as the coven rampage through the house, massacring everybody. And they're just like the sweetest little toxic duo.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's here that Armand references Claudia's youth, which is big red flag there, Louis. Big red flag.
I know, but he doesn't know about, I mean, this is what we come back to. He's terrible at politics. He doesn't know the rules. So that's the thing, all the way through. He doesn't know the rules. Lestat has not prepared them. Lestat has kept them ignorant. But he's already had one red flag, and that's the stats picture on the wall. Second red flag, well, first red flag is how quickly the coven turns. We've seen how incredibly vicious they are. Second red flag is the stats portrait on the wall. Third red flag is the reference to Claudia's youth. Run, for fuck's sake. I know you want to fuck him, but run. Run, 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 run. But he doesn't. He doesn't. And like he's just like, oh yeah, she's amazing. She's my little spark in the dark, which is a beautiful way of describing Claudia. But he doesn't realize. And then we get the fourth massive red flag, which is Armand very nonchalantly, very beautifully, as we said, he's a very polite monster going, oh, I sensed a tiny bit of trepidation when we mentioned Lestat. Come on, Louis. Because then he tries to bullshit his way out of it and is just met with a single word, don't. There's so many warning flags and he doesn't take any of them. Like in that one conversation alone, we've mentioned the youth. It's very clear that even if he doesn't immediately know who Lestat's maker is, and he says, you can tell me in your own time, he does know. He knows. We've got his immediate reaction to being lied to. Like, Louis, did you just leave Bricktop to do all the actual dealing? Or is he just used to dealing with brash, stupid American men, stupid racists, that he doesn't know how to deal with crafty, polite monsters? Because Louis is not, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying Louis is stupid, because he's not. He's a very intelligent man. He's just not used to this level of polite viciousness. Because Lestat is the kind of guy that says every single thought that's ever come into his head. So we always knew where he was with Lestat. Lestat was somebody that, I mean, he didn't expect him to attack. We see later on that fight is far more even-handed, but again, Lestat can fly. In that sequence, if Lestat had wanted to, he could have avoided them touching each other in any way, shape, or form. He lets Louis hurt him, but he still attacks back, and he could have just simply not done that. And then he drops him because he's going to leave him. So but he is again, I think, more used to kind of this very blunt force, I guess. And then he meets Armand, who's a very different monster.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are those people that are very good at, manipulating, and there's also those people who are, are far too trusting, who want to believe in, not necessarily the good in people, but just, believe that people are being honest with them. And I mean, I've definitely been taken in by, a few snakes in my time, but
Mm.
because of that, I am also a lot more aware that these sorts of people exist, and it can take a long time to get through those walls with me. But unfortunately, Louis, much like Guy in Talamasca, just doesn't have those walls.
No, because I think they found, I mean, Claudia immediately thinks, right, I found my family now. This is my family. I've not had this. All I have had is two insane dads who are way more interested in fighting with each other than they necessarily are with me. And I think she only realizes right at the very, very end of her life that Lestat loved her every bit as much as Louis did. But yeah, they're not used to this. They're so excited. They think Claudia thinks she's found a family. Louis is like, hey, Claudia's found friends. We can go on with our life. We don't have to worry about this. Everything is great. But of course, they're just trapping them from the very first minute. They are surrounded because it says, do you know what it means to be loved by death? And that's it. He is, Armand is death to him ultimately. And that he isn't is only because he is spared from the lynching in the trial, which is what it effectively is, by Lestat, who then, and we'll have to see what the the deal is, because there's definitely a deal made, stays away from him for years, again in a misguided attempt to keep him safe. Because obviously, I think there is an agreement made with Armand that Lestat stays away and Louis gets to live a beautiful, happy life. A beautiful, happy life in a cage. But yeah, Louis, my sweet angel, you're so bad at politics. Just doesn't see. And I get it because, again, Armand has presented everything to him so far precisely how he wants to. Comes to him in the guise of a little boy. He's now being really romantic, very charming. He's very charming in this scene, as that. I want more romantic. Imagine him in a romantic comedy. He'd be so good. But yes, he's a very romantic, very beautiful, very well crafted. Every aspect of their time in Paris is beautifully crafted and beautifully directed by Armand. It just unfortunately takes Louis 70 odd years to realize that. And that's where we leave them. We leave a last image is of a correctly after Armand warns him not to go to Roger anymore. Fifth flag, Louis. He we leave a very terrified, well, not terrified, but a worried and apprehensive looking Louis, surrounded by the sound of screams. It's a real, real shame that he didn't take that as the metaphor it was.
Yeah, series two is, I mean, series one was heavy in places, but series two is, especially on a rewatch, because I think the first time you watch it, like, oh, you found somebody that genuinely loves him. I mean, obviously Lestat genuinely loved him too, but this is a man that knows how to show his love in a healthy way, and then it's not until we get towards the end of the series that we realize that no, that's not true at all. He's just as unable to show proper love as Lestat in a healthy way. He's just been manipulating everything. And yeah, the rewatch of series two is, I think, going to be tougher than the rewatch of series one, because series one, they're just that one main episode and a couple of scenes in a couple of episodes after that. But this is just, as you said, it's just like watching a puppy get kicked repeatedly, isn't it? Especially with Claudia.
Well, it's because they are surrounded by profound cruelty, and that's what I'm actually getting upset. That's what really upsets you on the rewatch. And obviously this will change depending on when they choose to bring Lestat into the narrative in series three. But regardless, doesn't matter. Armand knows from the first minute, and I think it will be daft for any suggestion to the contrary. Even if they choose to contradict that, in my head, it doesn't matter because this is who Armand is. He is this very, very clever ancient being who is had to survive, a brilliant survivalist. He survived for all these years. Um, he knows. He knows from minute one. And they are surrounded by this net from the second they arrive in Paris and they don't know. And that net tightens and tightens and tightens and tightens. And it is just this profound cruelty of the coven playing with its kill before they do it because they're in Paris a long time before they decide to do it. And maybe they're going to choose that, oh, actually they only find out about Lestat at the last minute. But this is quite a deliberate show, and I just don't see, with all the parallels of how it's been set up, that that's going to be the case. I really do think that the coven knew from the second they arrived. And it's just vicious. And that's what makes it such a heavy rewatch.
But that is us through the second episode. We will continue. You see, this. I think you're understanding now why we have left it so long before we've come back to episode two. But we will, we
So
will be.
hard. Yeah,
Yes,
it's tough.
we need to build ourselves up. But we will be back, slightly sooner, with the look at episode three, which is simply called "No Pain," which is a massive lie.
It is a huge lie. Yes, indeed.
So yes, thank you for listening. Please do give us a like, rating, and follow wherever you are hearing us from. We do have a YouTube as well if you like pretty pictures along with our voices. So you can also give us a watch over there. And yes, we will be back very soon, hopefully, to continue this quite sad journey.
Yeah, and do follow us on social media. We'll put all the details in the show notes, but we have a Twitter, we have a Blue Sky, and we love interacting with you guys. So do please, we have an email that if you want to send us questions, discussions, feedback, tell me to stop swearing, all of these things, we're always welcome. So yeah, drop us a line, and thank you so much for listening.